Hannity force really concerns me. But it raises a larger issue. Right now, if you were to send money to a group, whether it's in the United States or whether it was in Syria, that identified itself as ISIS or Al-Qaeda, if you were to send money to a group like that, you yourself could get arrested. That's, providing support for terrorism. If you were to join a group like that, you yourself could get arrested. If you were to publish on the internet or in print a magazine or article or a rant supporting Al-Qaeda or ISIS, you could go to jail. And technically, domestic terrorism is illegal in the United States. But it's just technically, right? It's not actually, it's illegal, but there's no penalty to engage in domestic terrorism. So they can charge somebody with domestic terrorism, they can do an investigation. And here's why. We saw, I lived through this. I was a member of Students for Democratic Society back in East Lansing in the 1960s. And to some extent paid the price for it. And we were spied on, we were surveilled, we were instigated. When you identify a group as a domestic terrorist group, you acquire a whole brand new set of police powers. And in the case of the 1960s, they didn't actually acquire those powers. They simply took them. Whether it was the FBI or the state police, that's what they did. And we look back on that and, what they did to us, what they did to the civil rights movement, what they did to Martin Luther King, and we say, we don't want that to happen again. But we actually have a problem with domestic terrorism in the United States right now. And they are killing people. And yet, at the same time, if we pass laws that say if you join one of these right-wing groups that show up to beat up, left-wing protesters, you can go to jail. We can all sit around and go, oh, yeah, those are terrible people. They should go to jail. But what happens when President Trump says, oh, by the way, Black Lives Matter is also a domestic terrorist group. Antifa is also a domestic terrorist group, which he tweeted last week, by the way. So if you show up at a rally for one of them, or if you write a post praising them in Facebook, now you can go to prison. So how do we balance these, literally First Amendment rights and a legitimate concern about too much power in the hands of government with the fact that we have right-wing terrorists in our midst?